Joined now by Alex Newman, our international correspondent. Really pleased to have Alex here in Appleton, Wisconsin. So you got another great story for us, as you always do. Donald Trump has some really interesting things to say about homeschooling and about the brainwashing that's going on in public schools, and that's the topic of your latest article. Give us the skinny.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And Trump has become more and more vociferous about the brainwashing going on in our public schools. Back in 2016, when he was running, he said they're not educating, they're indoctrinating. So we've got these left-wing progressives posing as educators, pretending to teach our children. But he just released, and the fake media almost completely ignored this, but he just released a very significant column where he argues that this is one of the most crucial issues, that we have got to get the indoctrination, the anti-American indoctrination, the critical race theory and stuff under control, or we're going to lose our country. And so he outlined this plan for different things that he thinks should happen to get this under control. But of course, incredibly significant and incredibly buried by the fake media. Not a peep from any of the big ones.
Yeah, and this is big. Yeah, it makes me so sad. He had to have that first 4 years. You almost wish he could have that 4 years now, and maybe he's going to. It sounds like he's going to run again, and he'll be one of the front runners that we know of the Republican Party. But when you think about the appointment of Betsy DeVos as his Secretary of Education, he probably didn't know much better. I'm sure he didn't know many educational insiders, but she was not somebody who was going to fix problems. She was not somebody who was going to transform the system. She was not somebody who was going to oversee the removal of the Department of Education. The Donald Trump we're listening to now, do you think this is rhetoric, or do you think he's serious? If Donald Trump got 4 more years, what do you think? How much of this would he follow through on?
Well, I think he's very serious. Some of these things he actually did implement as best he could while he was president. For example, he called for a ban on critical race theory in any public institutions. He actually passed an executive order and said no federal agency, bureau, department may use this poisonous training scheme on its employees. And so he is calling now for states to do that at the state level, to ban any taxpayer funds for any institution, whether that be a government brainwash camp masquerading as a school or anything else. He's calling for every state to set up 1776 commissions like he did at the federal level to come up with an accurate portrayal of American history that doesn't mislead and lie and deceive our children about the true history of the United States. He's calling on states to pass laws protecting the right of parents to access the information and the materials that their children are being taught. He's calling for parents to organize at the local level and to get rid of the left-wing brainwashing in the government schools. And he's also, and this is a bit of a controversy among people in our movement, is calling for vouchers, right? He's saying that if parents want to get their children out of the brainwash camps, they should just get tax money to send them to private school or to do homeschooling. And, I know a lot of well-meaning conservatives have supported that. Betsy DeVos was in favor of that. But, of course, there's a big risk, Duke, and you and I have talked about this before, and that is that as soon as government money starts going to private schools and to homeschools, then the claws come and they say, well, now we need accountability because there's public money going here. You can't teach kids that the Bible is true. That's funding religion. So it's a real risk. We've seen this happen in jurisdictions. But, Trump is, I think, getting very serious about this issue. I think he's realized, as he said in his 4th of July speech in 2020, the reason for the mayhem in our streets is that our children are being indoctrinated to hate their country.
Yeah, it's exactly true. And, as much as I support Trump in his will to do this, think back to the first 4 years. I remember he passed an executive order that would punish colleges by having funds removed if they got in the way of free speech. Now, as far as I know, that was never once implemented. It never happened. Colleges continued to do what they did. There was none of those things. It was an executive order, which means the other aspects of the federal government could ignore it or try to. Why is it that when Joe Biden comes in and issues executive orders, everything falls right in place? Donald Trump was being fought by his own party when he was trying to do this. So how realistic is it for a conservative or Republican president to actually have any meaningful control over what goes on in public education?
Yeah, I hate to use the word systemic because it's been so
co-opted by the left.
Yes, with their systemic racism narrative. But we have a systemic problem. The system is the problem. And what happens when somebody from outside the system, like Donald Trump, comes in, even if he's ostensibly the chief executive officer of this monster monster called the federal government, all of those parts just kind of swallow him up and do everything possible to sabotage.
Grind to a halt.
Right, and we saw that. They didn't implement his orders. They didn't implement his policy prescriptions. They deliberately sabotaged everything they tried to do. They leaked information trying to make him look bad. And so we have to deal with the system. The system is the problem, and until the American people realize and wake up and see what's going on here, one guy becoming president is not going to be able to solve this.
No, unfortunately, I think you're right. And think about the bias in the media, too. One of the things that Donald Trump tried to do but didn't do nearly enough was remove the Obama apparatchiks from office, right? He was immediately pilloried for firing these people the way he tried to orchestrate, and got all presidents do it. All presidents clean house and start over. So when Trump did it, he was firing people. It was a scandal. What's the first thing Biden did when he took office? Swept all the Trump stuff off, and everybody applauded. The media applauded. So not only are you up against the systemic nature of this in the schools, you're up against a media that will not report the truth on these issues.